Namaskar. Hello and welcome to Weekly Global Insights, episode 309. A shout out to our viewers to like this program so it can reach its maximum potential. Today is Wednesday, the 16th of February, and here is what is happening around the world. Those of you who have been joining PGurus and following us now on our various channels, please do take some time out to retweet the tweet that we put out on our handles so that it will go viral. There is a lot of stuff that is happening around the world, and you, the global citizen, have a right to know what is right and what is wrong. Today, you know that MSM is completely compromised in many countries, and we are doing an honest effort to try and bring you stuff, no fluff. Let's start with Russia-Ukraine developments. White House takes wait-and-see approach as Russia says some troops are pulling back. US troops are heading to Slovakia from Germany for joint drills with NATO. Ukraine hit by cyber attacks as the rhetoric continues on both sides. Russia is ready to continue discussions with West on missiles, says Putin. Stop the hysteria, he adds. So, Sridharji, welcome to PGurus channel. And do you think now the situation is getting diffused in the Russia-Ukraine border, sir?
No, I don't think the situation is getting diffused, sir. The Russians are very smart in their maneuvers. They have, historical perspective of negotiations with the West, and they've got two most wily people sitting in Russia, which is Vladimir Putin and Sergei Lavrov, their foreign minister. So West is not biting into this argument that he is pulling out. And he is not. In fact, the latest statement about 45 minutes ago is that there's probably more troops going in rather than troops coming out. And there's still more than 150,000 people stationed around the border, engaged in drills, and Belarus is very active. So under these circumstances, the situation, only the media released by Vladimir Putin by words is what you hear as a withdrawal, but there's no withdrawal. He's not going to withdraw. He's not until his what you call security architecture discussions are complete. He's not going to withdraw.
And in India news, in Maldives, Indian Defense Secretary reaffirms security commitment and joint efforts for military capacity development. Viewers might know that there were China-fomented protests against India's presence in Maldives after India prevailed to ensure that democracy happened in Maldives. This happened a couple of years ago, but China has been chafing at it. Please go back and look at some of the videos and other information that came 2 years ago about how Maldives was brought back under India's fold, brought back into democracy, I should say. Sri Lankan finance minister to visit India to finalize the economic relief package. Some Indian nationals, including students, may consider leaving Ukraine as war threat looms. It is believed that it costs less to get a medical degree in Ukraine than in India. Sridharji, I want to pause at this point and get your thoughts on these three topics.
I think that it's a great, I think we touched on this probably a couple of episodes ago. India is making all right strategic maneuvers as a global player. It has not lost the momentum on Indian Ocean, which is considered a strategic pivot. And China has been trying to do all kinds of maneuvers, both around Sri Lanka as well as in Maldives. As you correctly pointed out, probably PGurus did a more extensive work on this a couple of years ago. So Maldives has been won over, including some of the Pakistani ISI groups, it is alleged, were instrumental in creating some kind of an anti-India propaganda, which was put down. So I think it has done the right thing. It says it will continue to develop military infrastructure and capability develop so Maldives can protect itself. With Sri Lanka, I think India came to the rescue and the economic package has been granted. It is also given some immediate credit facilities. The fact that the finance minister is coming to work out the package augurs well from a neighboring point of view. As far as the Ukraine is concerned, I think everybody is taking a wise decision. Which is named, I'm told that there's about 20,000 students and nationals together, roughly the number in around Kiev. and they're likely to leave just to be. I'm not sure whether they're going back to India, they're going to Europe, they're probably even going to Finland, which is not too far, to kind of protect themselves in the event of a war. So this is no different to all the other people moving around. With regard to a specific point, whether it costs less in Ukraine to get, you are an expert in that domain, sir, so therefore it's probably true. But I have to say one thing, Kiev as well is a very big tech innovation ecosystem. And so it is beyond being doctors. I will not be surprised if a lot of Indian tech boys are doing some work in that area.
Absolutely. And viewers, you can see our video with 𝗣𝗚𝘂𝘀𝘀𝘀 that aired yesterday about the Ukraine-China connection as to how much technology Ukraine has exported to China. In fact, thousands of Ukrainian engineers are in China helping them build some cutting-edge missile technology. So it's not as if China reverse engineered its way through all the missiles. There has been some help. So you can watch that video to know more about it. Taliban, Al-Qaeda, JEM-LET links concerning, says UNSC Counter-Terror Committee Chair Tirumurthy. Sridharji, this is a very profound statement as India kind of now has shed some of its inhibitions as far as the international platforms are concerned, and it is making its voice heard.
Well, I think India is not losing the momentous opportunity that has been presented itself as it holds the permanent chair or permanent position in the United Nations Security Council, along with the P5. So under its chairmanship, it is bringing to fore all the issues which otherwise were swept under the carpet. There's enough evidence from the Indian side of the presence of drones, presence of some of these foreign forces adjacent to Kashmir and other areas. So they are making their statement and they're making their position heard. It's wonderful to see that India taking a positive position. You will understand why it is becoming even more louder and louder because of two reasons. One is India hosted the Central Asian both defense ministers and foreign ministers conference where the Afghan security propped up. That's number one. Number two is that there is also going to be a significant amount of aid that is going to be released. There is a concern that aid may not reach the humanitarian, but it is going to go into the wrong hands.
And India's exports increased by 36.76% to 61.41 billion in January 2022, and overall exports in 2021 April to 2022 January, that's about 9-month period, is estimated to be around $545.71 billion, exhibiting a net growth of 37.68%. Overall, the imports for the period April 2021 to January 2022 is estimated to be around 611.91 billion. So basically now you are starting to see that India is becoming a net exporter. That is a very good sign. Of course, that will put an upward pressure in terms of the rupee-dollar exchange rate. So we'll have to wait and see if the Indian government does it or not. And China says that Taiwan Defense Ministry says that Chinese planes flew close to Dongyin, part of the Matsu archipelago off the coast of the Chinese Fujian province. Responding to Ukraine tensions, Taiwan says it is closely monitoring developments in China. First, the exports situation in India, sir, and then afterwards, the saber rattling of China in the Taiwan area.
Well, I think, sir, we covered this quite extensively in the previous versions of DGI, that India has been targeting and focused around diversified exports, from defense to agriculture to services and manufacturing, and also the merchandise. So the merchandise exports has taken off. The technology is growing. The defense exports is also growing. The agro has shown momentum. So what you are seeing is with their focused agenda, and the bilateral partnerships and free trade agreements that India has been doing with several nations, that it has lifted the ante on the export side of the business. It has considerably reduced the deficit between exports and imports. But as Sree, you pointed out, I think very soon you may see India being a net exporter rather than a net importer, or a wide trade deficit that India had on the trade side. The fact that you have $640 billion of trade reserves is a reflection on the positive momentum that India is seeing around this specific dimension. Again, that's a factor that we covered on the Indian export side. Now, with regard to China, what is a surprise on China making incursions into Taiwan? And I think that it is also perhaps, is some kind of a joint strategy between Russia and China to see how Russia goes first while the Olympics is going on, Winter Olympics is going on in China, which is not a great success. The audiences are very, very poor on the television audiences, but they don't want to do anything to upset the apple cart while that is going on. It remains to be seen what happens in the second half of 2022, having now witnessed what has happened in between Russia and Ukraine. So Taiwan is saying, I am keeping a close watch. I'm not relying on anybody, but I'm prepared, and I know that I have some allies that I can work with.
And in Asia news, Japan and Ukraine diplomats urge diplomacy to ease tensions with Russia. Germany, which historically had maintained ties with Russia and China, opens doors to Japan. Malaysia, which for the past 40 years worked with the West and ASEAN, expands relationship with China for markets and investments. Myanmar is not going to be attending the upcoming ASRAM summit after a regrettable exclusion of its diplomat by the bloc over military crisis. Sridharji, Asia, again, a lot happening, some new alignments. Malaysia seems to be a little bit of a confused country, if you ask me, Sridharji. Remember that Mahathir Mohamad, stoking up minority passions in India, only to find Modi ji quietly stop importing palm oil from Malaysia, that resulted in Mahathir Mohamad being deposed. What is really going on in Malaysia, sir?
Malaysia is facing two types of problems. One, lack of investments for the reasons that you outlined, political instability and political uncertainty, and as well as uncertainty around the policies. So there's been an investment dry up into Malaysia. Historical Malaysia has attracted very good investments. So once upon a time, it used to be agro, palm. In fact, even semiconductor industry used to be based out of Penang.
Penang, yes.
Based out of Penang and other places. Very rich farming industry, but because of its policies, it's beginning to lose its momentum. And actually, believe it or not, even Singapore has emerged as a very strong semiconductor. Singapore is emerging as a biotech. Moderna announced that it will be setting up a factory here. To come back to Malaysia, so Malaysia, where does it go? It tilts towards China because it sees a weak United States and ASEAN regrouping itself. ASEAN is a rules-based society. So therefore, it says, now I will shift my allegiance to China, open my borders, and use that as a threat to bring investments in. Whether they'll go full throttle, we don't know, because China and Malaysia have had several problems on the Belt Road Initiative. Again, we have covered that in the DGI, and they pulled out a major project. So that's on that side. As far as the Japan is concerned, Germany is now saying, I need to have a partnership with Japan. I had often neglected focusing my attention on China and Russia. I need to build, it is the world's third largest economy, and it probably requires a lot of help. So therefore, I think that that's where you are seeing that diplomacy being developed. As far as the Myanmar is concerned, there's still some question marks between ASEAN and Myanmar. For example, Laos and Cambodia are in favor of having a positive relationship with Myanmar. Indonesia and Thailand have also played a role in diffusing the crisis resulting from the junta takeover. But ASEAN did something, which is namely they blocked a diplomat from coming to these ASEAN foreign ministers meet, and Myanmar responds by saying they won't be attending. Look, they will sort out. In my view, ASEAN will sort out. India also keeps its door open with Myanmar because it has a lot of strategic interest in keeping a positive sense of dialogue. Doesn't matter who is at helm in Myanmar.
And now let's take a quick look at US news. Biden unfreezes frozen Taliban funds of $7 billion, splitting it between the 9/11 victims and humanitarian aid, raising some eyebrows. John Durham investigation alleges Trump White House spied on and including the White House itself and also at Trump's houses, raising national security implications. Clinton lawyers deny these allegations. I want to pause at this point, Siddharji, because this is an evolving investigation. For the longest time, Democrats have been trying to pin the victory of Trump in 2016 as being having received help from Russia to fame fake stories and so on and so forth. We have to also look at the role of the social media companies. In the name of growing business, Facebook and Twitter and perhaps even Google accepted any kind of advertisements at that point of time. There weren't any political filters put. So blaming one is not fair in my opinion. Plus, the Biden administration now has had 15, 16, 18 months, whatever time they've had to try and make a closure on this. Was 2016 elections really influenced by Russia or not? And what was the role, if any, that Putin played? They've had their chance. They had a majority in Congress, in Senate, as well as their man in the White House. Now, still, we are seeing evidence to the contrary emerging. So I think I'd like you to kind of help our viewers understand what is the truth, sir.
Well, there is political and there is reality. The political truth is that people are recognizing within the Democratic Party, Biden is not a 2024 candidate. Okay, so therefore, there is a new candidate that is needed. The strongest candidate that Democratic Party have is Hillary Clinton. Michelle Obama may have different views, but Hillary is still right there trying to peg away. Remember that within the Democratic Party, there's a very, very strong Clinton allegiance, and even amongst the workers, there's a very strong allegiance to Hillary Clinton. This whole thing, that there is a Trump somehow colluded, was a smokescreen that was created, and there was no proof, there was no evidence, nothing was given. Where you actually have a proof in the case of Hunter Biden, the mainstream media as well as the Democratic Party have, smudged it. Now, in the case of this, there's several things that are coming out. One, the servers in his house, servers in the White House were spied on with software being loaded. And they have named a tech executive who is from New Star, and he is claiming that, he did not do and he was following the due protocols. It is all listed in the filings. The Hillary Clinton or the lawyer who is representing Hillary Clinton, that specific camp is saying that evidence to be withdrawn. But the fact remains that this investigation is going on the sidelines, with Department of Justice not cooperating with the former deputy who was tasked with this investigation, and he continues his work. So what you have here is the political drama playing out, and apparently there is a wide section of Democrats now believe to bring this matter to an end, let's complete formally the investigation and put this issue to rest, because it has gone on, as you rightly said, well past 2016 elections, well past 2020 elections. We are now into midterm in 2022.
And most Democrats now are beginning to say that Hillary Clinton should be investigated for the spying scandal. So we will see how that plays out. As inflation soars, Biden is now pushing for an additional spending of 30 billion to support COVID-19 aid. Sridharji, we now have like at-home testing kits even in the United States, and these are all manufactured in, no guesses here, China. So this is one of those epic moments in one's life, that here is a person, as a country that is being accused of releasing this virus to the whole world, and lo and behold, they're coming back and giving you testing kits. Luckily for the world, their vaccines didn't pan out. Otherwise, think about the cleanup they would have made, killing they would have made.
Oh, amazing. Also, just to get back to a very important point which we missed, which is namely, the $7 billion worth of Afghan assets were frozen, and they were in the United States, they were frozen. And there were technical issues to unleash or release those frozen assets because of Taliban's involvement and Taliban Al-Qaeda involvement in the 9/11 attacks. There's still the 9/11 cases that are going on. So what does Biden do? To release this money and avoid legal complications, he decides to split this evenly. I mean, astronomical decision to give 50% to the 9/11 victims and their families, and 50% goes towards humanitarian aid. Has humanitarian aid ever reached Afghanistan? We are the present regimes that are prevalent, and with another nation, which many consider as a rogue nation, as its neighbor, and which is the surrogate for the Afghanistan, claiming great kind of humanitarian, humanitarian action that has been taken. It only means the money is going into the wrong hands. That's all it is. $3.5 billion is a significant amount of money. Remember, Pakistan has a $1 or $1.2 billion aid given by Saudi Arabia, which they shortly have to return. Their economy is in real shambles. So the money, whether the money is going to reach the humanitarian aid, remains a big question. But that is what Mr. Biden has done. Another thing that we glossed over, which at some stage we will cover, is nuclear stuff. We'll get to that when we get to West Asia. But this is a very amazing decision that the Biden administration has made.
And viewers, on behalf of PGurus, I want to put this on record that we are solidly with the victims of the 9/11 incident, the firefighters, the policemen who completely disregarded their lives to go and try and rescue as many people as possible. And when you start hearing that the then ambassador of Saudi Arabia to United States had in fact facilitated payments to some of these attackers, and that person still roams free. Obama goes to Saudi Arabia. Everybody was expecting that Saudi Arabia's lawsuit, the lawsuit filed by the families in the United States against Saudi Arabia, would go forward, and that thing is being slow walked. The United States has no right to tell other countries that they are rigged and they are corrupt, when you yourself, we have to look within ourselves. What kind of an answer are all the mothers who lost their husbands, dear husbands, who trying to save people? What was their fault? So this is a really, really sad issue that the Biden administration now continues to just let it slide. What is so special about Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? I would like to know. Sridharji, I know you know the answer to this. That's why I'm not going to ask you the question. But I just felt that this had to be put out there. Thanks for listening, guys. I'm not ranting. This is something that came from the heart. Let's go to the next section, which is Europe news. Ukraine says it alone is responsible for joining NATO and not any other nation. COVID restrictions ease across Europe, notwithstanding high number of active COVID cases. Polish veterans prepare for enlistment as Ukraine prepares for war. Who's a Polish? Who's a German? Who's a Ukrainian? Who's a Russian? You look at that area there, everything is a confused mess. People move from here to there, from there to here. Unfortunately, I hope that with the COVID cases falling down, that normalcy of some semblance returns there. Sridharji, I think the worst is over until the next wave, of course. Uh, I think I'm also hearing that from April onwards, international air travel might resume. How do you see the situation now, sir?
Well, I think often we have predicted something on the COVID and we have turned out to be going the wrong way. Right now, the general disposition is that we have had enough of shutdowns, enough of lockdowns, enough of mandates. It has not worked. So COVID is going to be here with us. It's not going to go away. Let people get used to it. Let people get treated and let people take the appropriate precautions. And I think that seems to be the wise decision. And certainly one nation where seems to be working is India. And India is one country. Now it has gone down to active cases somewhere 2024th with less than 500,000 cases being active. When you look at the numbers in Russia, when you look at the numbers in France, when you look at the numbers in Spain, Germany, Netherlands, UK, Mexico, Brazil, these are all in millions. Of course, we will exclude ourselves in United States. We lead the world in everything in the wrong way. We have about 28 million still active cases. We say COVID, then we say no COVID, and then we import stuff from China and give it freely to people. United States still has only 64% of the population, 64% of the population fully vaccinated. It did not give the world access to the vaccines. It started first, and if you exclude China, where India is around 55%. Many of the nations have gone past 70-75%. India has vaccinated 1.7 billion doses of vaccine, of which close to 753 million people have been vaccinated fully. India, that is India. United States has 213 million people fully vaccinated. That tells you the stark difference between the two countries and the vaccination programs and why there is reluctance in the United States to be vaccinated. This is one more nail in the problem that we face in the United States.
And now let's turn our eyes towards West Asia. The United States eyes Israel robots for Middle East operations as PM Naftali Bennett reaches Bahrain for discussions. Russian defense minister arrives in Syria for joint naval exercises. Israeli diplomats reach Vienna for Iran nuclear talks. Sree, this is the last item on our news for today. So let's quickly wrap it up, sir. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are, I think that you can see Russia extending its tentacles on the strategic arms. It's maintaining Syria. Look at the map. You will begin to understand the whole map within the context of what Russia's ambitions are. As far as the Mr. Bennett going to Bahrain, it's a reflection that there is no United States. It is Mr. Bennett in Saudi Arabia, Mr. Bennett in UAE, Mr. Bennett in Bahrain. It's a reflection that the Israel is extending its tentacles and becoming a player of significance in West Asia, perhaps as a counter to Iran and Iraq, which are probably more or less aligned. As far as the nuclear is concerned, this is where I wanted to touch. Israel is extremely concerned because to get back to the 2015 policy which Obama did with the Iranian regime, they have now allowed, the Biden administration has allowed all civil nuclear agreements to start between Iran and other willing nations, lifting the bans that Trump imposed. So Israel is definitely worried because there's no mechanism or method to track these things. It is trying to understand what exactly is happening in Vienna. It's very rare for Israel to send its diplomats to such discussions because it has refused to discuss with Iran on anything to do with nuclear.
And with that, our today's segment comes to a close. Please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And please do not forget to click on the bell button so that you get notifications. Sridharji, as always, a pleasure having you on the channel, sir, co-hosting this program. We'll be back on Friday, same time, same channel, same rapid-fire, accurate news. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Wednesday and Thursday. We look forward to seeing you on Friday.